Hello, my name is Joanna and I'm feeling crafty. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where I talk all about sewing. Today I have a tutorial on how to make a very quick and beautifully finished drawstring bag, like this one. It is fully lined, it has boxed corners, and it has a drawstring, and it's a super useful little thing, and I show you a few of my tips and tricks on how to make it quickly and beautifully. So here's what you're going to need to make your drawstring bag. So you will need 2 pieces of fabric. They are measuring 21 inches by 10 inches. I will pop the dimensions in the description box down below. So you will need one for your outer and one for the lining, and both are the same measurements. And then you are going to need 2 strips that are the width of your outer and lining pieces, and they are 2¼ inches wide, and they are to form your channels for your drawstring. You will also need some sort of a string. I have some upcycled t-shirts and some t-shirt yarn that I'm going to be using, but you can totally upcycle t-shirts as well. So the first thing you're going to do, you're going to fold the strips, the short ends of your strips. You're going to fold 1/2 centimeter and then 1 centimeter and press with your iron. And then we're going to top stitch it. See that line I drew there? I'm going to top stitch my channel on that line about 1 millimeter from that fold, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of these edges. So I am going to backstitch at the beginning and then go forward, and I'm going to again backstitch at the end as well. Backstitch at the beginning and at the end. If in doubt, backstitch anyway. Okay, so I stitched my the edges of my channels, and I brought it to my iron, folded them in half lengthwise and pressed. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to find the middle point of my channels, and I'm going to mark them. You can mark them with your marking tool or a pin, whatever you have handy. So once I have my half points on my channels, I'm going to do the same for the outer fabric. I'm going to grab a friction marker and mark that point. And what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take my channel and I'm going to make sure all raw edges are together. I am going to match that middle point, and I'm going to pin my channel in place. As you can see, the channel is a little bit shorter than our fabric, and that is so that we don't catch it in our seam allowance. Okay. And now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. I have both of my channels pinned, and I'm going to grab my lining fabric and I'm going to place it on top of it, right sides together, pretty to pretty, and I'm going to re-pin this edge. Okay, one side and the other. Okay, so I'm pinning here and here, and once you have it all pinned, you take it to the sewing machine, and using the width of your presser foot as a guide, you're going to stitch along this edge and this edge, remembering to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. And done. I have two sides stitched, and I'm going to bring it to the ironing board to open that seam allowance. So I'm going to open this little sandwich. I'm going to make sure the channel is facing towards the outer fabric, and I'm going to open this seam allowance. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. I'm going to make sure the channel is facing towards the outer fabric and open this seam allowance. Okay, so now we are going to open this sandwich, and we're going to match these seams here, this seam matching this seam. Now we're going to pin, and then we're going to pin all the way. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch all the way on this edge, backstitch at the beginning, backstitch at the end. The width of the presser foot is going to be my seam allowance. Now on this side, you're going to stitch all the way through the outer fabric, but in the lining we're going to need a little bit of an opening. So I'm going to mark myself where my opening is, and what we're going to do is we're going to backstitch, go all the way, get to the one side of your opening, backstitch, leave a gap, start here, backstitch to your marking, all the way down, and backstitch at the end. So I'm all done stitching both of my sides. I remembered to leave my opening. So now you could be done right now, turn it right side out and be finished. But I want to do an additional step and add a little bit of depth to my drawstring bag. Okay, so that I want to box the corners of the bottom of the bag. So for that, I'm going to grab my quilting ruler, and I'm going to measure 1 inch from the corner. Now pay attention that I'm measuring my 1 inch corner. On this side, I'm measuring it from the fold, but on this side, I'm measuring it from the seam, not from the edge of the fabric, but from the seam. Okay, that's quite important. So I'm going to draw that with my marking tool, and I'm going to do that on all 4 of my corners. My corners are marked, my squares, so I'm just going to go ahead and cut all of them out like so. So next I'm going to show you how I box the corners. So I like to stitch my corners together. You could stitch all 4 of them separately, but I'm lazy, and if I can do 2 seams instead of 4, I'm going to go for it. And also I find it it gives a nicer finish for those corners to kind of stay together if you stitch them together. Okay, so I'm going to show you how I do that. So I'm going to stitch the right corner to the right corner, the lining to the outer, and the same thing on the other side. So I'm going to grab the lining first, and I'm going to match this crease, which is the bottom of the bag, with my side seam like so. I'm going to put the pin in the middle, and then I'm going to grab the outer fabric. I'm going to open it. Like so. And I'm going to match it together. Okay. And then the corners. And I know this is a little bit tricky, so I am going to do the other side on camera again, just so you can repeat that, okay? So now I'm going to do the other corner. I am matching that crease to my seam. I have opened that seam here where the opening is, just to make it easier for myself in the next step to stitch that opening shut. Okay, so I'm going to put a pin in the middle, and then I'm going to scrunch this whole thing up, and it will look a little bit like dog's dinner, and you will be doubting yourself massively, thinking that you've done something wrong because it just looks wrong, but just trust the process. You will get there at the end, and it is supposed to look like dog's dinner, but it will be beautiful at the end. Okay, so I am matching the corners. Okay, so yeah, it looks a bit weird, but it's going to be okay. So I'm going to stitch through all 4 layers, remembering to backstitch at the beginning and at the end. I'm doing it one-handed. You please use 2 hands. I was just too lazy to move my tripod. And please remember to remove your pins. We do not sew through pins. All the way to the other side and backstitch. Okay, so I did stitch both sides through all of the layers. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to look for my opening, and I'm going to turn the whole thing right side out. Look at that, isn't she cute? Now we're going to turn it wrong side out, because we still have to stitch this opening shut. So once you pin this, it is kind of hard to see where the opening is. So I like to put a pin right where that opening starts, and that way I know that I'm going to have to start a little bit beyond that point, backstitch, and then go in. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. A pin right where that opening starts, and I'm going to put one in the middle for good measure. And I'm going to stitch this very close to the edge, about 1 millimeter seam allowance, backstitching at the beginning and at the end. And that's finished. Aren't you happy? I'm using red thread so you can see everything nice and clearly. Okay, I like to do one last step before I put in the drawstrings and do a little bit top stitch around the edge, just because it looks pretty. So let me show you how to do that. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the table part, I don't remember its name, okay, of my sewing machine, just so I can put my project onto the machine like so, okay. And I am going to stitch about 1 millimeter from this line. Where you start doesn't really matter because you're going to come back to the same spot. I'm going to make my stitch length a little bit longer. I have set my machine to 3.5. I am going to back stitch and very slowly, the slower you go, the better control you have. We're going to stitch all around, and having that table part removed makes it just a little bit easier. Now, when you get to that seam there, things can get a little bit bulky, okay? So when you get closer and when your presser foot, the front of your presser foot starts going upwards, that indicates the bulk. So for that I like to use the hump jumper. So I'm just going to slide him behind and smooth sailing. Okay, so I'm going to stitch around until I come back to the same spot. Okay, so that top stitch is finished. And now what we are going to do is we're going to thread in our drawstrings. I like to use old t-shirts, so if t-shirts are beyond salvaging or turning into rags or wipes or whatever, I like to cut them into 1/2 inch strips, and then if you pull them, they will roll on itself, see, and create a little t-shirt yarn. So I'm going to use 2 of those. What you want is you want your string to be twice the width of your channel and a little bit extra. Yeah, we're not going to be very scientific about it. I'm going to use a bodkin to thread my string in. So I'm going to open the bodkin. I'm going to attach it to my strip like so. I'm going to hold it and slide that little ring down. And I'm going to go from right to left all the way around. And the other side. Okay, so that's one side done, and the other side I'm going to start on the opposite end. I'm going to do the same thing, just start at this end. And then the last thing I'm going to do, I'm going to tie a knot at each end of the drawstring bag. I am rapidly losing light, so I'm just trying to rush. It's an awful rainy day. I don't know if you can hear the rain there. So I'm going to trim those ends, and I'm going to tie the knot on the other side. And trim. All right, and look at that. And there you have it. How cute is this? Lads, I apologize for the light. The weather has shifted and it's very, very dark. So I hope you could see what I was doing throughout the tutorial. Island, huh? Anyway, so this is my gorgeous little drawstring bag. I'm demonstrating the cinchability of it because it's very satisfying. And it's fully lined and beautifully finished. So I hope you give it a go. If you do, please tag me. I'm at Joanna's Feeling Crafty, one word, on Instagram. And if you would like to see more from me, more lovely tutorials, then hit that subscribe button, would you? Thank you very much, and I hope you find a little bit of time in your life for a bit of creativity. Bye.